Amazing. Without further ado, I'm very happy to introduce to all of you Dela Feby from the WageIndicator team, who has been leading the Makin Terang work for the past 3 years together with our trade union partners. Dela is a project coordinator and has been leading a big bunch of trade union partners and social partners and colleagues through a lot of data collection and she will first give a broad overview of the work we've done. And then we will move into a panel discussion with colleagues from Mondial FNV and from the trade union partners to discuss what these results will actually have told us in practice. Welcome, Dela, you have the floor.
Thanks, Fiona. I will share my PPT. Can you all see the PPT? Yes? Okay, good. Good day, everyone. I'm Dela Feby from WageIndicator Foundation. I will present the program initiative we are implementing, which we have titled in this side session as Data-Driven Organizing in Indonesia's Garment Sector, from Compliance to Change. This is an initiative program over a period almost 10 years, like Fiona said, led by WageIndicator Foundation, Gajimu, part of WageIndicator in Indonesia, Trade Union Rights Center, and FNV Mondial. It's supported by Lourdes Foundation and in collaboration with 4 national garment unions, SPN, TSK, SPSI, Gartex, and GSBI. So this initiative aims to improve transparency regarding working conditions in the textile, garment, footwear, and leather sectors across 5 regions, with the largest garment industry in Indonesia. It is Banten, Jakarta, West Java, Central Java, and Yogyakarta. This is our journey. We started in 2017. We developed methods and conducted surveys on workers' experience and knowledge in their workplace. In the second phase, we realized that although we had the data, we lacked the capacity to use it effectively. Therefore, during this period, we began conducting database advocacy training and monitoring data usage in the union advocacy and social dialogue. The third phase is built on the reflection of the previous 2 phases. It recognized that efforts to improve working conditions must be supported by strong unions and broad member representation. Therefore, Makin Terang is targeting to improve both working conditions and workers' representation. On the other hand, it is in line with the new regulation, new principle, new due diligence, etc., are forcing brands to be more transparent about working conditions and working representation in their supply chain. Here is the workflow approach and result of our latest program, Makin Terang. In our approach and all program activities, we strive to amplify workers' voices, especially women and workers with job insecurity. We begin with collecting data on labor law compliance or decent work check from 112 unionized factories and 242 non-unionized factories, with a total of more than 1,800 workers respondents, and 59% of the total are women workers. Here we can see the 3 years result of decent work check survey on the average percentage of non-compliance reported by workers. For each topic, higher rates of non-compliance were found in factories without unions, but still, it's not much different from factories with unions on the topic of rights to organize, job security, maternity, and so on. For our union partners, this could be an evaluation that there are still many problems in their member factories, as well as their organizing strategy in the new targeted factories, that they are even more violation there. Other data collection is the workers' priority pools that can be administered across factories repeatedly. This tool is more scalable than decent work check and can gather all workers' needs and aspiration beyond basic labor laws. We call it the workers' suggestion box to be raised at negotiation. This is the top 10 priority in the workers' priority pools result from more than 38,000 respondents. 47% of the total respondents are women, with more than 214,000 votes. We can see specific needs in the forms of compliance mechanism, recreation, sport and art activities, award, bonuses, easy access to menstrual leave, and etc. After gathering data, we held 10 sessions of learning circle or study group, linking workers from non-union factories to our union partners. We also held various training sessions to interpret the results of the data and use them to prepare arguments in social dialogue. It is evidence-based social dialogue workshop, the gender responsive collective bargaining agreement workshop, and the TU self-training. With 28 workshop and training sessions, there are more than 800 workers and union leaders have gained benefits. 33% of the total are women. In the last flow here, as the year-end program intervention result, we monitor the progress of social dialogue and collective agreements. We recorded 22 new CBAs agreed and affecting more than 63,000 workers and almost 1,000 negotiation sessions in 322 factories, and 61% of the negotiation agreed with improvement. We also provide insight into which arguments and methods work best for negotiating improved conditions. For example, as we can see in the most frequently discussed topics in bipartite meetings record, such as maternity and women protection issues, which arise in the compliance surveys and suggestion box, but then become rare topics in dialogue. In 3 years, there are only 22 bipartite meetings discuss maternity and women's protection topics. This means that there are crucial issues that have not been addressed in the union negotiation strategy. As the result, we also recorded 5 new unions joining our partners unions federation with more than 5,000 new members. 36% of them are women, as well as number of organizational point areas that will be worked on by our union partners in the coming period. So this is the effect that we hope from this initiative: change from compliance with labor regulation to working conditions above the basic labor standard, and at the same time strengthening workers' representation and right to organize. That concludes our initiative program. So thank you for your attention. We would be pleased to discuss it with you. Thanks, Fiona. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dela, for showing these initial results. And we are very happy to dive deeper into these results and what it actually means for the trade unions to be able to collect this type of data and then use it in the negotiations, bipartite, but also in the collective bargaining negotiations. I'm very pleased to introduce to you the our panel moderator, who is a good friend, but also a crucial person within Indonesia's trade union movement, I would say. We have Rita, who represents Mondiaal FNV, but I would say much more than that alone for Indonesia's trade union movement. Rita will be leading us through a panel discussion with our trade union partners who've been working with us together to collect all of this information for the past 9 years. A small note, Rita, before I let you introduce your panel. We have Henrik, Eddie, and Angi with us today. You will introduce your panel. Please, for everybody who came in late, this panel will be in Bahasa. So please switch on the globe icon, either English or Bahasa translation, so you can follow the panel. And then Rita, you have the floor.
Thanks, Fiona. Good morning, good afternoon from Jakarta. As Fiona mentioned, I'm Rita Tambunan. I'm working as a consultant for Indonesia for Mondial FNV. Dela has already explained about the project itself. So now we are happy to have the important stakeholders in our work in Indonesia. We have the representation from the workers themselves and also the trade union representative of the trade union, one of the trade union partners, and also the representative from the management side. But before that, let me just mention that the Makin Terang project. Makin Terang means become clearer in English, and it's actually quoted from a poem that written by a proletar poem. He is now still declared as a missing person as a result of the reformasi, the topple down of the new order regime, where the freedom of association was banned at that time, and now it's become clearer that freedom of association is part of our Indonesian trade union movement. So without further ado, I will just invite Sister Angi Amalia. She is a worker from one factory, Golden Emperor Indonesia. And then from now on, when we have the speakers, I'm going to speak in Bahasa because then it would be easier also for our speakers. So, Mbak Anggi, silahkan
Hi,
untuk
Angi.
memulai
So you may
sesinya.
start the
Mungkin Mbak Anggi bisa
discussion.
memperkenalkan
Maybe
dulu
you can introduce
siapa Mbak
yourself
Anggi dan
first, who you
kenapa
are and where you
Mbak
work,
bisa terlibat
and
dalam
how can you
pekerjaan di
how did you
Makin Terang
involve
ini.
in this Makin Terang project?
Sebelumnya terima kasih untuk
Thank you
kesempatannya.
very much for the
Perkenalkan, nama
opportunity
saya
given to me.
Angi
My name is
dari
Angi. I am the
PKFUD
chairperson
Gartek yang
of
ada di
the
PT Golden
PKF
Barang
Union
Indonesia.
Gartex in the PT
Sebelumnya
Golden
saya
Indonesia.
bekerja di bagian
I
asesmen
used to
tapi
work
saat
for
ini
the as
saya sudah
building
dibebaskan
department, but
dan
I'm
fokus
now
untuk
free from my
menjalankan
position so
tugas
that
di
I can focus on
Organisasi
my
Serikat ini.
work in the organization, in the union.
Kemudian PT Golden Barang
And
Indonesia ini ada
Golden
di
Mirror
Kabupaten
Indonesia
Brebes, Jawa Tengah,
is
dan
located
baru
in Brebes, Central
berdiri
Java, and
di
was
pertengahan tahun
established
2024.
in the middle of 2024.
Perusahaan ini
And
memproduksi
this
sepatu
company
dari baju
produced
Puma, dan
footwear
saat
from
ini
Puma,
total pekerja
and
kurang lebih ada
the total
sekitar
worker that
3.600
employed here
orang,
is about
dan mayoritas
3,600 people,
80%-nya
and
adalah pekerja
majority or
perempuan.
80% of them are women
Dari kami
workers.
sendiri, Gartex berdiri
And
di
we
PT
from
ini
Gartex,
dari
we
akhir
were
Oktober
there
2024, dan
since
saat ini
end
kami
of October
memiliki sekitar
2024, and
85
now we
orang.
have around 600 members
Kemudian di
in that
tangan kami
company.
juga ada 4
And
serikat
then
lainnya dan beberapa
we have
pekerja
other
juga
4
sudah
unions in the
bergabung.
company,
Sisanya dari 10%
and the
itu
rest
masih
of
enggan
the
untuk bergabung dengan
10%,
serikat pekerja.
they are reluctant to join the trade union. You are still muted, Fary.
Still muted, Kak Rita. Mute, Kak.
Sorry. Mungkin Anggi bisa
So I think
menjelaskan soal
Angi, maybe you
situasi
can explain
kondisi
about
kerja
the
di
situation, the
pabrik
working
tempat Anggi
condition
bekerja,
in the
dan
factory where you
bagaimana
work, and
caranya Anggi
also
dan teman-teman
how
di Serikat Pekerja
do
bisa
you
mendorong
and your
perempuan untuk
union friends
ikut berorganisasi.
promoting women's involvement in the
Oke,
organizations
di
or women's
perusahaan sendiri, kalau misalnya
participation in the
pekerja
organization?
memutuskan,
In our
memutuskan untuk
company,
bergabung di
when a worker
serikat itu
decides
umumnya
to
karena
join union,
masalah atau
it's
persoalan yang mereka
usually
rasakan sendiri
because they've
sehari-hari ya.
encountered some
Kalau untuk
problems
sekarang ini
during
misalnya
work.
terkait
To give you an
jam lembur yang
example, on the
sebenarnya bisa dibilang
overtime,
tidak jelas, tidak jelas
overtime
ya.
working hour, it is
Di
unclear
surat
arrangement.
perintah lembur
Why I said it's
tertulis
unclear
3 jam,
because
tapi
in the
kemudian di
order
beberapa
of
waktu
overtime,
terakhir
it's
bisa
3
berubah
hours,
menjadi
but
4
then
jam bahkan sampai 5 jam.
minutes before it ends, it could
Masalah
extend up
terbesarnya
to
ada
4 to
di
5 hours. The second
perlakuan
problem
tidak adil terhadap pekerja
is the
perempuan yang sedang
unfair
hamil.
treatment against
Jadi ada beberapa
pregnant
dari mereka yang
workers.
terkena ancaman
There were some of
oleh
them
supervisor
who
yang
were
kondisinya
threatened that they're
supervisor
going
itu
to be
langsung
terminated from the
berhari-hari hamil
employment, and they,
karena
in
dianggap
this case, the
mereka itu
supervisor
menjadi
is the
beban lagi.
foreign worker because they are considered to be a burden
Kemudian
in
ada
the
juga
production line.
permasalahan
There's
terkait
also
kasus
issue
pelecehan seksual.
around sexual
Di sini
harassment,
umumnya bersifat
like
verbal.
usually it's a
Contohnya
verbal sexual
kayak
harassment. To
ada
give you an example, they will be
dikomentari
teased,
soal
they will be
perempuan dan
commented
sebagainya.
about their body shape
Dari
and
hal
many
itu
other
akhirnya
comments.
banyak pekerja yang
And then
memutuskan
many
bergabung
workers
di serikat ini,
decide
khususnya
to
pekerja
join
perempuan itu
union,
sendiri.
specifically
Dan
women
mereka juga
workers. And they
mendukung saya sebagai pemimpin
also
serikat
support
perempuan
me
karena
as the
dianggap
chairperson of the
paham
union,
terkait hal-hal yang
women
terjadi.
union leaders, because they consider
Jadi
me
Anggi sekarang
to have some
ketua
certain
serikat pekerja
understanding of the
di
situation. So
perusahaan
you
tersebut
are
ya.
the chairperson of the
Lalu
union, the
kemudian
leader of the union in your
bagaimana
company. Yes, that's
relasi
right.
serikat pekerja dengan
So
pihak
how is
manajemen
the
di tempat
relationship
Anggi
between the
bekerja?
union
Apa yang
and the
menurut Anggi
management?
paling membantu teman-teman serikat
What do you think is
dalam
the most
relasi dengan
helpful for the union to
dengan
build this good
hal-hal yang tadi Anggi
relationship,
sebutkan tadi itu?
especially to
Misalnya
talk about
kalau
the
misalnya mau melakukan
issue that you
advokasi
highlighted
kasus
earlier?
atau
For
ada
instance, if you want
pelatihan
to
dan
do
bagaimana dengan
case
perekrutan
advocacy,
anggota ke dalam
negotiation,
organisasi.
as well as the
Sejauh ini hubungannya cukup dinamis,
recruitment of
kadang lancar tapi kadang juga
members. Actually, the
ada
relationship is
kericuhan
very dynamic,
soal
and
kepentingan
but
masing-masing.
there's some
Misalnya pada saat itu pernah kita
issues.
berunding
Like for
terkait
instance, we
regulasi
negotiate
home leave
about the
karena itu
regulation on sick leave.
banyak terjadi kesulitan di
There
situ dan
are a lot
kita
of
mendapatkan tanda tangan
problems
dari supervisor mereka.
in order to get a signature
Tapi di
from
situ
their
manajemen kayak
supervisor.
tidak
The management, it
menanggapi,
seems like they don't
mereka hanya
really
menjawab dengan
care.
iya nanti kami akan
They
evaluasi.
only
Tapi hasil
responded saying that yes, we're
kami
going to
jelas
evaluate
tidak
that,
menerima feedback
but
apapun dari hal itu.
unfortunately, we received no feedback for more than a
Kemudian
month. And then
setelah itu kita mengajak manajemen untuk berunding kembali
we
dengan membawa
asked the management to
data dari
negotiate
para
again with
pekerja
us
sakit
by
yang
bringing
harusnya
along
tidak
all of the
terpenuhi karena
workers
mereka dianggap
whose
palsu.
rights to leave, sick leave, to have sick leave were not fulfilled.
Lalu
They were
hasilnya
considered to be
bagaimana
absent
dari
without any
situ?
statement, any
Dan
clarity.
hasilnya dari
So
situ
what was the
kita
result?
mencapai kesepakatan
Well,
bersamanya.
we then reached the
Pada akhirnya sampai sekarang
agreement.
regulasinya sudah tidak seperti
The
lagi.
regulation has
Nah,
changed
jadi
now in
dari
our
situ
company.
Anggi bisa
So
menjelaskan apa
you
soal
maybe you
data
can
yang tadi
explain about the
tadi Anggi
data
kumpulkan itu dengan
that
teman-teman.
you've collected with your friends.
Apa yang menurut Anggi bisa
What do
ditarik
you
pelajarannya
think
dari situ?
the conclusion
Dari
from
data
your
itu jadi
experience?
bisa
Well,
sangat membantu
with the
pengurus,
data,
salah satunya untuk perekrutan dan juga dari teman-teman
we can
pekerja
use the
sendiri
data for
bisa
recruitment,
mengetahui hal-hal yang
and
banyak loh yang belum
the
terpenuhi.
workers learn about their rights, the rights that have not yet
Terima kasih
fulfilled.
Anggi.
Thank you very much, Angi, for
Sekarang
that.
saya akan
And now I'm
beranjak
going to
ke
turn
Pak
to
Edi Gustandi.
Eddie
Pak
Gustandi.
Edi Gustandi adalah
Eddie Gustandi
bagian dari
is
mitra project
part
Makin Terang,
of Makin Terang
perwakilan dari
project.
Serikat
He
Pekerja TSK
represents
KSPSI.
TSK
Saya
KSPSI
mungkin
Union.
bisa meminta
So
Pak Edi untuk
I'm going to ask Pak
memperkenalkan diri
Edi
dulu, Pak,
to introduce
dan
himself
serikatnya.
first, as well as his union.
Baik,
Please,
Ibu,
Pak Edi.
terima kasih.
Thank you very
Suara
much for
saya
the time.
terdengar, Bu, ya?
Am I audible? Yes, we can hear
Baik,
you.
terima kasih kepada moderator,
Thank you.
Mbak Rita
Thank you,
Pertiwi,
moderator.
yang
Thank
sudah
you, Mbak
memberikan
Rita,
kesempatan kepada kami.
for giving me the
Jujur, saya
opportunity
baru
to
mengenal
speak
Pak Satu
here.
persatu,
I'm
walaupun
not
ada
going
beberapa yang saya
to
kenal.
greet everyone, even though I know some people
Perkenalkan
here in the
saya,
room.
Edi
My
Gustandi.
name is Eddie
Saya
Gustandi.
saat ini menjabat sebagai
I am
Ketua Umum
the
Cabang Federasi
chairperson
Serikat Pekerja
of
Tekstil
the
Sabang
Federation
Merauke Serikat Pekerja
of the
seluruh
Union
Indonesia
of the
yang gabungannya
Textile
adalah
fabric and leather in Majalengka, district of Majalengka. There are a lot of things that I'd like to convey here, but allow me to focus more on the journey, how we help building up the trade union, our union in Majalengka. There are a lot of things that I have to convey. First, we start to move to work in Majalengka back in 2020. It coincided with COVID-19. And then in 2 years, we have 2 companies become members of our union. However, the problem that we face, or the biggest challenge that we face, is that we all know Majalengka used to be a agriculture dominated area that is now transitioned to industrial estate after they were considered to be part of the Rebana Triangle by the then governor of West Java. As a consequence, Majalengka is open for labor-intensive industries such as garment, textile, and footwear, and then other supporting businesses of the companies. The challenge that we faced when we was first established in Majalengka, mostly the workers were fresh graduate from high school or vocational school. I can refer to them as the Gen Z. Correct me if I'm wrong if I uh, don't mention them correctly. When we deal with the Gen Z, there are a lot of things that we didn't think of, but then it becomes a very fundamental question for us to address. For instance, if I join the union, what's in it for me? What's the benefit for me? And then why do you have to pay for the union contribution or fees? What would you do? What would you do with the fees? And who we going to channel these fees? And how about the financial statement of the fees that we've contributed? All of these questions have quote unquote forced me, specifically for me, that I have to acknowledge that we have different, we are coming from different generations. Maybe I'm part of baby boomers. I don't know. I was born in the 70s. I had to deal with the Gen Z that are very critical, that have a strong critical thinking. So we try to regulate ourselves as well as to employ a more adjusted way of recruitment. We use gatherings, like for instance, the gatherings of the hobby club. So we try to develop this link. We try to explain to them the benefits of joining the union. Thanks be to God, since 2020 until the end of 2025, we our union is accepted in 21 companies and we have 17,000 members. So 5 years of our work in this area, we were really appreciated by workers, specifically in Majalengka. However, their critical thinking continued to grow after they joining the trade union because their next questions, if there's no case, if there's no defense from the uh, union, what will we do with the money? But if there's no case, what happened to that? So that was the next question that they raised. So we are thinking again, if that's the case, then we try to return the fees that they paid in a form of educational program, training programs for the members of our union, because we cannot cover all of our worker or all of members in these companies. The educational programs that we've organized are related to the trade union knowledge, the negotiation skill, and when they involved in the CBA. So again, we try to focus on the soft skill. We are so thankful that it's accepted by them. We know that the effects, we cannot really feel the effect, but however, when there is a newly established factory and union is going to establish that, they're going to refer to us. They're going to look for our assistance, even though we know we are far from the best, but at least they refer to us. And then I started to think that the union should change the way they fight. trade unions should not rely on the members' power, like threatening to go to street or hit the table. We have left this kind of approach behind. So we try to open up the link to collaborate with other organizations that we think credible to improve the workers or the union's executives' soft skill. For instance, the program that we have with the wage indicator through gajimu.com, a lot of programs as explained by Dela in her presentation. Even outside of the assistance provided by the wage indicator to improve the capacity of the trade union, we also organize some of the activities ourselves. We've collaborated with Dela for 3 times on how to organize this educational program and using the protection based on data. We finance everything ourselves without asking assistance from wage indicator. This is something that we are so proud of. It means that we are trying to use the fees that they've contributed by organizing capacity building activities. This is very important. Just like what I said earlier, when the trade union speaks without data, they're not going to consider our opinion. But any complaint, grievances that we receive, we want to ensure that these grievances, the complaints can be translated into data, of course, with strong arguments, so that the company, the management in this case, they will be able to understand the situation. They understand that what the union is doing is not just talking. So we focus also on the data that we can present and in response to the indicators, just like what we have in the meetings that we had with the members. So that's what we can do. And do you still have time? Do I
Baik,
still have time?
mungkin
Well,
saya
actually,
bantu untuk
I
sedikit
just want to
bisa lebih tajam, Pak Edi. Kalau menurut
ask
Pak
further
Edi,
question. I'd like to know
sebenarnya seberapa strategis sih
what
pentingnya buat serikat
how do you
pekerja
think
bisa
what do you think of
mempergunakan data
trade
sebagai
unions'
bagian dari
ability to use
penguatan
data as
kapasitas dan
part
juga
of
membantu
capacity
untuk
building
mengubah
as
situasi
well
lingkungan
as in
kerja
changing
sehingga
the situation in the
compliance menjadi lebih
workplace
bermakna
so
buat
that
anggota
the
dan pekerja.
compliance will be more meaningful for members and
Jadi
workers in
saya
general?
ambil contoh satu
Okay,
kasus lah.
let me give you an
Katakanlah
example. There's this one
perusahaannya
case.
karyawannya mencapai 4.000 atau 5.000
The
orang.
say
Di
in
mana
a company
ketika
they've
ada
employed
karyawan
4,000 to
yang
5,000 workers.
mengambil
If
cuti hamil
there is a
atau
worker
cuti
who
haid,
are
itu
applying for
selalu
menstrual leave or
dilakukan
maternity
oleh
leave,
perusahaan
they always
karena
consider this
tanda kutip ya
workers
supaya
as
orang
burden
yang
because
tidak
they have
bekerja
to
kira-kira begitu
pay
lah.
someone who
Nah,
is not quote
selalu
unquote
dikatakan
working.
bahwa ini mengganggu produksi
They
dan
all say that
persentasenya besar. Contohnya
it's
seperti itu.
disturbing for
Dan
the
kami
reduction.
mencoba menganalisis
We are
sebetulnya
trying to
berapa polisi yang
analyze
mengajukan
how many
cuti haid
people that
gratis
are
setiap
actually
bulannya, atau
filing
berapa
or
orang yang
applying menstrual
sebetulnya
leave
yang mengajukan
every
cuti
month,
hamil
or
dalam
how
1 tahun
many people
terakhir.
are actually
Nah,
applying
sehingga
for maternity
klaim tanda
leave
kutip
for the
dari
past year.
perusahaan bahwa
Hence,
itu
the
sangat
claim
mengganggu dan
made by the company saying that this is
tidak.
very disturbing or
Ternyata setelah kami
creating only
analisa
disadvantage for the
persentasenya
company,
tidak
after we
besar.
analyze further,
Nah,
the
contohnya seperti itu.
percentage is actually
Nah,
so
data inilah yang
small.
kami sajikan
So
ketika
we
perusahaan
present this
mengatakan
data to the
bahwa ini
company,
sudah
especially when
dilakukan
they
oleh
say
kita
or
ini,
when they
sehingga
argue,
banyak yang
a lot
cuti
of people
hamil.
are
Jadi kami
asking for
tidak hanya
menstrual
meneliti
and
secara
maternity
spesifik
leaves. So
normatif,
we are not only
tetapi
talking
dari sisi
about
data pun kami
normative
sajikan.
issues, but I
Sebetulnya
try to
Pak,
present this
Bu,
in the data
bahwa
sense.
klaim
I
Bapak yang
convince them
mengatakan
by
ini
saying that
mengganggu tidak
your
sepenuhnya
claim
benar.
saying that
Tapi
this is
setelah
a
kami
disturbing
analisis,
issue, no, it's
ternyata
not
yang cuti
disturbing
hamil
because
itu
after we
tidak
analyze
sampai
further, the
0,1%
one who
karyawan
apply for
kita.
maternity
Contohnya
leave is
seperti
less
itu,
than
hal
1% of
kecilnya
your workforce.
seperti itu.
This is an
Jadi
example of
misalkan
how we
kami
use data.
mengajukan PKB
Or when we
yang lebih
propose for
responsive gender
collective
misalkan.
bargaining
Kita ketahui
agreement that
bersama
is more
di
gender
serikat
responsive.
buruh
As we
bahwa
know, we cannot
ternyata
deny
di
the
beberapa
situation that
perusahaan
sometimes
garmen khususnya
in garment
sepatu gitu ya,
or
tidak
footwear
secara umum,
companies,
tidak secara spesifik menunjuk satu
I
perusahaan, tapi
know
secara
it's not
umum
specifically mentioned a
kasus-kasus pelecehan
certain
seksual itu sangat banyak.
company. Sexual
Dan
harassment
kadang-kadang
cases are
kita si
always
korban
there.
tidak berani
And the
untuk speak
victims,
up
they
gitu
don't
kan.
have the
Maka
courage to
dengan ada
speak up
sertifikat,
about the situation.
dengan
But with the
penjelasan,
presence of the union,
semacam
with
pertemuan-pertemuan,
meetings
beberapa
that we've
kasus
organized with
kita bisa
workers,
tangani dan mereka
we
berani untuk
can
bicara
handle
hal-hal
some
kecil seperti
cases,
itu.
and the
Sehingga
victims
ketika kami
have
bicara
the
agar
courage to speak
PKB yang
up.
dibuat itu lebih
So
responsif
when we
gender dan
emphasize that the
memasukkan
CBA should be
isu-isu tentang
more gender
harassment misalnya,
responsive and
itu
should
bisa
include
didukung oleh perusahaan. Karena
clauses
datanya
or
jelas,
articles on sexual
dengan
harassment,
tanda
the
kutip
company will
siapa
support that
korbannya, berapa
because it's
orang, dan
clear
lain-lain
who
seperti
are
itu.
the
Sehingga itu
victims,
sangat
who are the
membantu.
perpetrators. It's
Sehingga
clear. It's
kami
really
bergeser
helpful. So we now try to shift the way we do our strategies. In the past, we only focus on the normative, even though this is something that we need to highlight or emphasize. We add this with data so that it will support what we want. So that whatever we say is not just verbal without data backup.
Makasih
So
Pak Edi. Nanti kita
thank you
bisa
very
kembali
much, Pak
lagi
Edi. So
kalau
I think we
misalnya
can
ada
return to you if
pertanyaan-pertanyaan
there are
dari
some
audience.
questions from the
Saya akan
audience. I'm
berlanjut ke
going to now
pembicara
turn
berikutnya.
to
Pembicara berikutnya
the
adalah
next
Pak Henry.
presenter. We have
Mungkin
Pak Henry.
bisa dibuka mic-nya, lalu kemudian Pak
Maybe
Henry
you can
bisa
open the
bantu
microphone.
memperkenalkan dirinya, Pak.
Pak
Baik, terima kasih
Pak
Ibu
Henrik,
Rita.
can you introduce yourself? Thank you very much,
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Ibu Rita.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om
Waalaikumsalam
Swastiastu,
warahmatullahi
Namo Buddhaya,
wabarakatuh.
Salam
Om
Kebajikan.
Swastiastu,
Salam
Nama
untuk
Budaya,
semuanya.
Salam Kebajikan,
Senang
and
bisa
greetings to
bertemu
all.
dengan
I'm so
orang-orang
happy
hebat siang
and
ini,
pleased to meet
dan
all
saya
of the
mendengarkan dengan
great
seksama
people
apa
today.
yang
And I have been
narasumber
listening
tadi
since the presentation of
sampaikan ke
Miss
saya.
Dela
Yang pertama,
until the
izinkan
presentation of
saya
my colleagues here.
memperkenalkan diri.
So
Nama
allow
saya
me to
Henrik.
introduce myself. My
Hari ini
name is
saya
Henrik,
bertugas
and I
sebagai senior
am
manager
working as a
HRD
senior
PT
manager
Shutdown Ligung
of the
Indonesia
personnel in
bertempat
Shutdown
di
Likung, Indonesia.
Majalengka,
The
Jawa
company
Barat.
is located in Majalengka,
Perusahaan
West Java.
yang saya tempati hari ini
The company that I work
memproduksi
for
industri alas kaki,
produce
tepatnya
footwear
sepatu,
products,
memproduksi
shoes to be
salah
exact.
satu brand
We
ternama
produce
dan juga
one of the most famous
fokusnya ke
brands,
pasar
and
ekspor.
we focus on
Adapun
the export
jumlah
market.
karyawan
In terms of the number
kolektif
of
secara grup di
workers
Majalengka
employed
total
here,
ada 16.000
in
karyawan
Majalengka, we have
dengan lebih dari
16,000 workers with more than 52
adalah
or
pekerja
55%
perempuan.
are
Dan dalam
women
keseharian
workers.
tugas saya
And
terlibat aktif dalam
I
banyak hubungan industrial
am very
di
active
mana
in the industrial
berkaitan
relation,
dengan pengupahan,
in which
kemudian
I deal a
berhubungan
lot
dengan
with the
serikat pekerja
wage
baik di tingkat
payment and
perusahaan maupun di
also
tingkat
involved in the dialogue
kabupaten.
with the
Dan
trade union at
bersama
all
dengan rekan saya
levels.
juga Pak Edi,
And
saya
also
cukup
I
aktif
work
di
closely
LKS
with
Tripartit,
Eddie,
salah satu
and
organisasi
I'm involved in the
ketenagakerjaan
tripartite
yang memang
communication forum,
dimandatori oleh local government,
which is
kemudian
mandated
juga
by our local
perumahan
government, and also
tripartit
in
yang
the
mempertemukan unsur
wage
pengusaha,
payment, the
pekerja, dan juga
bipartite
pemerintah.
forum,
Itu mungkin
which
sedikit
in which we have
Terima
the
kasih Pak
workers
Henry.
as
Jadi Pak
well
Henry
as the employers
sudah sangat
representatives there. Thank you, Pak
familiar
Hendrik.
dengan
So you
kebutuhan yang
are
terkait
quite
dari serikat
familiar
pekerja ya.
with the workers and the trade union works.
Mungkin
Okay,
yang
so
menyambung tadi yang dibicarakan oleh Anggi dan
to
juga
respond
Pak
to what
Edi,
Angi and
menurut Pak
Pak
Henry,
Edi
kalau
mentioned
melihat
earlier,
data kepatuhan
if
atau
you look at
compliance
the compliance
perusahaan
data,
pada
especially
aturan-aturan
from
ketenaga
your
kerja itu,
companies to labor
kira-kira
law
Pak
or
Henry mau
labor
punya
regulations,
komentar apa tentang situasi
what do you
itu?
think of the
Bagaimana
situation?
misalnya
For
project
instance,
ini soal
how
kemampuan dari
how
teman-teman
this
serikat
project
pekerja menggunakan data,
thinks
menganalisa,
and
lalu
use
kemudian
data, analyze the
menyampaikannya
data,
dalam
and then
pertemuan-pertemuan
and present
politik
that
dengan
in
pengusaha
the
dapat
bipartite
membantu
meetings with the
assessment kondisi kerja di
employers can
pabrik,
help in
membantu
assessing the working conditions in the
membuat
factory
perundingan atau
and
pertemuan-pertemuan
to
antara
negotiate
pekerja dan
uh,
perwakilan manajemen
with
menjadi lebih efektif. Itu
so that the negotiation
dari
is more
refleksi Pak
effective.
Henrik sendiri
From
bagaimana?
your own
Oke,
reflection,
baik,
what do you
terima
think
kasih
of the
Mbak Rita.
situation? Thank you,
Refleksi saya
Marita.
sebagai
So again,
perwakilan manajemen dalam
as a
konteks
representative of the
dalam
management
topik
in this
diskusi kita hari ini
context,
adalah
um,
bahwa data ketenaga kerjaan yang
the
dikumpulkan
employment
langsung
data
melalui
that was
pekerja
collected
itu akan
directly
punya nilai
from
yang lebih
workers
strategis.
will
Artinya
have
apa?
more
Bukan hanya
strategic
sebagai
values.
nilai
What
kepatuhan
it
yang harus
means
diikuti
is
oleh
more than just
pekerja,
compliance
tetapi
that
melainkan juga
we
sebagai
have to
sebuah
adhere
alat
to,
dialog
but it'll
antara
serve as
manajemen
a
dengan
means
pekerja
of
yang
dialogue
punya
between
tujuan untuk
management and workers
continuous improvement
to
atau
have a
perbaikan yang
continuous
berkelanjutan.
improvement.
Saya tadi setuju dengan
So
beberapa
I
poin.
agree with some of
Saya
the
coba
points
bagi mungkin ke
raised
dalam
by the
beberapa hal.
union.
Yang
I
pertama
divide
adalah
that into three
data ini
stages. The
memang
first one
membantu
is that
assessment
these
di
data
internal
really help us
factory
in
atau manajemen.
conducting
Karena
internal
data itu
assessment
seringkali tidak
because
muncul
these
akurat dalam
data sometimes they
proses-proses audit
are
formal.
not
Justru lebih sering munculnya adalah
emerging accurately in the audit
ketika
process,
berinteraksi
but
dengan
we will be able to
banyak
see the
windows
data
communication
when
channel
we
yang ada di perusahaan, itu
interact
yang harus
with the communication
dibangun.
channel. So I
Sebagai
think we need to
contoh,
develop a
misalnya
better
di perusahaan
communication in the
saya
company.
hari
To give you
ini
an
memiliki
example,
beberapa
in the
windows
factory where I
communication
work,
channel. Saya
we
sebutkan
have
tentu saja beberapa, salah
many
satunya
channels of
seperti
communication.
suggestion and box,
For example,
kemudian
suggestion box and
hotline channel,
hotline channel that is easy to access by workers. And we also have apps or application, smartphone application. It's a self-service platform that workers can utilize. It's an interactive uh, for workers and management. There are many examples. For instance, on the working hours, it is mentioned in the CBA, but in practice, in the line production, is it like what has been mentioned in the agreement, workload, and then the effectiveness of the workers' working hours and rest period? When we do this correctly, the data will be helpful for the management, specifically in identifying gaps, specifically if there are some compliance issue. So I agree with the previous presenters. We're not trying to find, well, we are using this data as a early warning system tools. So I agree with the previous speaker. It'll help the employer in structuring the commitments and negotiation with workers or trade union. Because in the negotiation, our biggest challenge, well, actually me, Pak Edi, and the other people, is how to formulate perceptions and facts, to put that into the negotiation. So that's our experience in formulating CBA, because the data that we agreed upon should have been the common grounds that can be discussed formally. And then when the data are there and the data are coming from the workers, the data will be more rational. And then it should be based on data and evidence so that we'll be able to avoid emotional conflicts, debates, unnecessary debates, or prolonged meeting that doesn't have any end. So that's why I'd like to cite here that whenever bargaining happens, it has shifted. It's not about who is the most dominant, most stronger, no. Because we know in the situation, the company is actually stronger, right? The company has a strong dominance in compared to workers. So that's why trade union is there to shift this paradigm, and we need to identify the real problems and resolve that through the bargaining that we are going to do in the negotiation table. Another advantage of this data collection, it will serve as a bargaining position for the employer's perspective. They can use this as the benchmark internally. To give you an example, our company exists in Majalengka and other places in West Java. You will be able to see the situations of our company from distance in compared to our competitors or other companies. So we are so thankful. Hopefully, we'll become the employee's choice because we already have the bargaining position. That's
Satu
actually
lagi
the
pertanyaan
advantage
Pak
of
Henrik,
having it.
saya
One other
ditanyakan.
question, Pak
Kalau
Henrik.
misalnya
I'm
soal
curious.
relasi tadi Pak Henry sudah
How
menyebutkan soal
on the
ini
relation,
bisa
you already
menjadi
mentioned that
posisi
this is
tawar
going
yang
to
baik
be
menjadi
a
cash
good
matchmaking
bargaining
tool dari
power,
perusahaan
just like an
pada
added
pemasok
value
atau brand.
for
Sejauh
the
ini
brands
respon
and
dari
companies.
pemasok
So I
dan
want to
brand
know
pada
responses from brands
posisi
and
perusahaan yang
supplier,
kemudian membuka ruang
especially for
komitmen
companies
dan
that
komunikasi dengan
open commitment,
serikat pekerja bagaimana?
communication with the trade union. What do they think about this? This is a very interesting point. Well, with brands, they have code of conduct as well as code of leadership, especially on the communication with the trade union. The freedom of association is clearly um, highlighted, that brands have emphasized that we need to avoid things like what Angi has mentioned earlier about the possibility of harassment or the union's frictions or any dispute between management and the workers. Some of the key important words that I'd like to highlight here is that we need to ensure that there is a trust between management and the trade union. Second, data transparency. Management, if they don't uh, if they're not transparent with the data, it's going to be very difficult for them to negotiate with the workers because it has been proven that if we have an intense communication, just like what we did in the company with the routine and monthly communication forum, we will be able to resolve almost everything. Everything can be negotiated. There should be also a timeline and then clear mechanism in the collective bargaining agreement. Because as we know, CBA has a specific and designated time. It should be adjusted to the level of transparency that we have. Lastly, the added value when we do all of these is at the point of sustainability, the sustainability point. So when we do that,
tidak hanya pada potensi manajemen adalah kepentingan
it's
lolos audit saja misalkan ya,
not only
tapi
for the
ini
audit
punya
purpose, for
added
instance,
value
for the
terkait dengan
management, but there will be an added
kemudian
value to the
produktivitas dan
stability,
sustainability,
productivity,
keberlangsungan.
and
Terima kasih.
sustainability.
Terima
Thank you.
kasih.
Thank you
Terima
very
kasih
much.
banyak.
Thank you very much.
For Sister Angi, Pak Edi, and Pak Henrik. Very interesting insights from the the stakeholders, the parties from the ground. I'm going to go for to provide the floor for two brothers from different countries. First of all, I would invite Brother Ashraf Uddin from Bangladesh Labor Foundation. It would be good also to have like some reflection to explore the similarities, differences from the implementation, because we understand that in Bangladesh, also in Ethiopia, the government TGSL sectors are also growing, and there's also the necessity for us to encourage the business community as well as the trade unions to deal with the data. So maybe Brother Ashraf can share with us.
Thanks, Rita. I think it was a great discussion. I mean, it's very lovely to see the progress in Indonesia. From the Bangladesh point of view, I see lots of similarities with the Indonesian approach and WageIndicator approach. From Bangladesh part, I think workers-generated data has been a strong and powerful tools, because this type of approach is quite new in Bangladesh. I was hearing from the management portions that, when the trade union portions as well, when data is there, the negotiation become more stronger. And I have seen one question from someone that, we started this data collection in Bangladesh in RMG sector back in 2 years back, and in a specific cluster. Now we extended this area in 3 sectors, like one is RMG, and one is leather sector, and another one is footwear sectors. But for RMG, what is important for us that we are covering not only the tier 1, we also covering the supply chain, tier 2 and tier 3 factories. And because of this survey, we used to say that we think this is happening, but now we can start telling that this is what the workers are telling us. That since the data collection is actually outside of the factories and sometimes it's in the community levels, so the data workers can actually say very easily and they can speak up, so that reality becomes more visible to the audiences. And these types of data, I think, is set the tone for start discussion. It's not like pointing someone or for compliance and punishments. Rather, it's give us a open door for the trade unions for start the dialogue with the management, with the governments, with the stakeholders as well. And another important area is that, it's a gender disaggregated data. By gender, contract type, union memberships, harassment, maternity, protection gaps, job insecurity, it becomes more open than earlier. And also then when they are actually the female, especially the female workers, when they are actually speaking outside of the factories, they can speak very independently and very openly, so that then these types of data actually validate what is happening actually in field, in practice, in the workplaces. But there are still some challenges. Country like us, and also this approach is very new in Bangladesh. Workers are sometimes afraid to speak openly. And also, we have another reality is that, we have a strong influence from the global brands and buyers in Bangladesh, especially in the Bangladesh RMG sectors. So workers need to make sure that they are actually out of job insecurities. And also, there is also a strong, it's not like only the employers and workers perspective, also banks needs to be engaged in the perspective of human rights and environmental due diligence. And also, we cannot ignore the informalities, as I mentioned, that the supply chain, tier 2 and tier 3 factories, and also the leather sectors and footwear sectors, which are the second largest sectors from Bangladesh. As I also seen that the unionized persons, they are from the Nike workplaces. So this is also important for us, that addressing informalities, informal sectors like home-based workers, and home-based workers, the accessories and cottons, button, finishings, dyeing, that types of things need to be addressed. And also, I have also heard that, trust of data, it is also very important for us. How actually we bring this data into the trust to the stakeholders. Since we are very new in Bangladesh, I think we are taking the good example from the Indonesians, and we have started and that negotiations and advocacies and dialogues through the unions in Bangladesh. And that result is tremendous still. And we have our second set of data will be available very soon, and that I think that will be very helpful for the unions in Bangladesh to address the real scenario of the workers, so that they can actually engage in the negotiations in the government level and also in the factory levels actually. And also, this is very important. Finally, what I have seen from our lessons, that context is also matters rather than the tools. So with the use of the tools and digitalizations, we are actually bringing the context into the right holders and stakeholders group. And also data, we need to enrich the union negotiation skills on the data, how they use data into the negotiations. And finally, what I want to say, that the ownership is the key responsibilities. From this data, the brands, the employers, and trade unions, also the governments, has to take ownerships to empower, actually, to give the workers' rights on board it. That is what Bangladesh experience at this moment. Thank you so very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Brother Ashraf. I'm going to Brother Gashaw Tesfa from WageIndicator in Ethiopia now. You're also going to have the similar project going on in Ethiopia. Maybe you can also share a little bit while you are listening to the Indonesian experience. Is there also some similarities and differences from the project that you are having in Ethiopia?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Rita. Thank you for this great opportunity. It's an honor to reflect on my experience in Ethiopia. Basically, I really appreciate the presentation from the Indonesian team, and I also like the presentation from the Bangladesh. Yeah, the very fundamental principle of this data-driven organizing is very much similar to the other team as well. I mean, here in Ethiopia, we also do this data-driven social dialogue for more than 8 years since 2018, and here are some of the similarities. Like the first one is we depend on data to negotiate or to create this tripartite negotiation discussion between the trade unions, the federation, and the employers. The second one is we observe the power of data. I mean, like in Indonesia, in Ethiopia, data obtained from the workers themselves has impacted the employers and other stakeholders to improve the workplace. The other one is like Indonesia, we have also observed a number of improvements, especially in terms of the labor compliance. There are improvements in in the workplace. There are improvements in safety and health. The production or the development of quality CBA is observed, and this other human rights like like this maternity leave, workplace security or employment security, working hours, and all these have been significantly improved because of this data-driven tripartite social dialogues. Having said so, we also observed some differences with the Indonesian team. Like these are basically from the structure of the organizational structure. For instance, in Ethiopia, we have Confederation of Ethiopian Trade Union. Under that, we do have the federation for the respective factory. Then under the factory, each factory do have trade union. And so our work has been directly with the trade unions. The federation introduces us to the trade unions. Then we go to this factory. Then the factory select which employees are going to give the data, because it is the factory which knows who is capable of understanding the questions, responding the right answer for these questions and that sort. Then having all this data, we just upload the data for analysis, and we just go back for social dialogue. The other difference is maybe the context. Obviously, economically, politically, culturally, and in terms of this education, Ethiopia might be totally different. It might be different from this Indonesia. The other important difference, especially from the presentation of Henrik, is like the availability of technology. In Ethiopia, I believe we are not much advanced in using these different applications. In fact, we may not be, you may not find people with these fundamental technologies like mobile phones. So that might be some of the differences. In terms of these achievements, we believe we have a number of improvements because of this data-driven organizing. We have observed cluster-based wage increase. Organizations found in the same location try to set similar basic or minimum wage, so that turnover decrease, and that has improved the wage of those employees which were very much lower. Awareness increase, identification of this gender gap, quality production, improvement of these CBAs, and then developing this women-only meeting from the data we have already were some of the most important achievements of the project in Ethiopia. So I strongly believe this project can be expanded or can be adapted to other settings if you identify core objectives, leverage technology, partner with different organizations, advocate for institutional support, and measure impact and follow up. Then obviously the project can be adapted to other settings and other farms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gashaw. We have had a very interesting discussion. Very sorry that our time is really packed, actually. I will not summarize everything because things are so interesting to summarize. But I think one quote that would be very interesting to take from this discussion is actually the data-driven negotiation and also organizing not only benefited for the trade unions, but also for the business community. Pak Henrik also mentioned about the sustainability of the business is actually to some extent depend on the good performance of the labor relation within the ground. And also, Brother Ashraf mentioned about this kind of project can be a model for labor rights impact assessment, where both parties can try to identify them and then mitigate the risk of the violation that could also hamper the productivity and also the business process. So this is the thing that we can take from the discussion. I will give it back to Fiona.
Thank you so much, Rita, and all our speakers today. I think Rita summed it up perfectly, so I'm not gonna repeat that again. The only thing that I would like to hand over to everybody else when we move into other discussions happening around the OECD Garment Forum, global discussions happening on this sector, which is expanding, but also under heavy scrutinization and under risks for global human rights due diligence that Ashraf also already mentioned. I think it's extremely important to take the opportunity of centering dialogue and centering data within your dialogue and giving equal opportunity to all parties involved to be able to speak together and make sure that you can come to an agreement. We have both in Bangladesh, Ethiopia, and Indonesia now seen what the result is of respectful data-driven dialogue, which can only lead to a win-win-win situation for all. So we would be grateful to support anybody that would like to take this approach up as well. Please feel free to reach out to any of the team here today, send a message to Rita, to Ashraf, to Gashaw, to me, to Dela, and see where we can bring this approach next. We will also share the recording with all of you today. If there's any questions further, I saw some questions in the chat about our approach, about the tech that we are using, or about anything else. Please feel free to also reach out about that. We will share many of the links that we shared in the chat today also with everybody, so you can look at that yourself. I am aware that we are at the end, and I know many people are following many sessions for the OECD today. So I'm going to close us off for today. Thank you very much for sharing your experience, joining us on this journey of improving workers' lives, improving wages. Gashaw's point on that there are cluster wages now negotiated in Ethiopia where there is no minimum wage is amazing. So look at all the improvements that are happening. Thank you for your time and all your hard work. The only way is up, I would say. Have a great rest of your day in Europe and great rest of your afternoon in Indonesia. Thanks all for joining, and see you very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Terima kasih,
Thank
Pak
you.
Henrik, Pak
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Uddin.
Ashraf, Gashaw, Pak
Thanks,
Henrik,
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Bye.
day.
Henrik, terima kasih. Angi, terima kasih.